Medic!
Welcome back, everyone, to the Medic Up podcast. We took a break there for a minute, a hiatus, if you will. Just over 365 days since the last episode was posted. But guess what? We're back. I'd like to take a second to thank all the local boys and girls who over the past year have diligently asked, when are you going to post another episode? Thanks also to the messages via text and social media I've gotten as well, asking the same thing. Thank you all for your support, encouragement, and most of all, your patience. So if you've just been filling the hours, listening to other podcasts over the last year, just waiting with bated breath for the next episode of Medic Up to show up on your podcast app, well, you don't have to wait any longer, because here it is. My good friend James Clardy is sitting across from me today, and I've been waiting a long time for this to happen. We planned this over a year ago, but you know how it goes. People get busy, life gets in the way, and before you know it, it's a year later. But here we are, and this is happening now. I struggled with a theme for the episode, but deep down I think I knew where we would end up. So this is just two medics talking, just like what happens when you put two medics in a station, a post, an ambulance, the squad. They start shooting the shit, telling war stories, reminiscing about how it used to be, how they came up, and what keeps them going. That, my friends, is this episode. There are a lot of names used in this episode, so many, in fact, that probably needed to get release forms signed. And I kind of wimped out and edited out a few of the last names only because I really didn't know how each person would react to hearing their name on the air. This is just two medics talking about people, the past, the future, the good, the bad, coming up in the job, where the job is going. We're going to talk about Clardy's gameballs and a few other things that crossed our minds. We talked a total of about 2.5 hours, so I have to split this episode. It's going to definitely be a two-parter. So here it is, part one. Two medics talking about starting out, coming up, gameballs, and Clardy's dad calls the Pope. Just a quick disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed on the Medic Up podcast are those of the individual host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the hosts or guests' employers. Any content provided by our guests are of their opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything anywhere. Hope you guys like it.
So, I usually don't say people's last names, but everybody knows you as your last name. James Clardy, or Clardy, is here. Year after the last episode, I got him. Although I was going through notes, I wrote these notes over a year ago. And since you're pig-headed, like me, you didn't do anything I asked you. And say, maybe give me a little bio, maybe give me a little idea what you want to talk about. So now tell us a little bit about James Clardy, or Clardy.
Sorry about not writing the bio. I was busy writing Dear Chief letters for all the stuff that I've done wrong in the past year. I don't know. What do you want to know about me, man?
Where did you tell me about you? I mean, I'll help you. I affectionately refer to you as the Parapyro Pig, because you've done every facet of public safety, including the military. Start there. Tell me about, where did it start?
Yeah, I'm the trifecta, I like to call it, the trifecta. My dad told me that as long as I worked for the government in some fashion or form, that I would always have a paycheck and some insurance, and that was always more important than anything else. So, started as a young jarhead Marine, and went from there. Got out of the Marine Corps. Nothing special in my Marine Corps career. My short Marine Corps career, I could do a lot of push-ups. The dumber you were, the more push-ups you could do, because you always stayed in trouble. And I don't know if this may be a surprise to a lot of people, but I have a hard time not running my mouth about shit. So, and that didn't start later in life. That started pretty early. So the Marine Corps, taught me a good base and taught me a lot about life and how to chase women and drink a lot of booze and stuff. And when I got out, my parents were in Texas, and all I wanted to do, my dad was a cop, a federal agent, a border patrol agent, and that's all I grew up around. I thought that was like normal life, was guys that would come over after a midnight to 8 shift and where there was, a shooting or a chase or a fight, and they came over and they played poker and they drank, and the funniest story out of that is I came home one day, they'd had a shooting that night, and I came in from school and a bunch of Border Patrol agents sitting around, my dining room table. Boy, my mom was really pissed about this one. And they're on the phone, and one guy saying, "No, really, I want to speak to the goddamn Pope." So we all kind of thought they were joking, because I told Mom, I said, "Hey, I think they called the Vatican." And she's like, "No, they didn't call the Vatican." And then the phone bill came in, and there was a $90 phone bill to the Vatican where they tried to call the Pope that night. And awesome. I thought that was the coolest shit ever. So all I wanted to do was be a cop, so I applied at every department in the world that I could possibly apply at. And I actually ended up in Amarillo, Texas, which was the wild, wild west back in the early 90s. I was a graduate of the 62nd Amarillo Police Academy. Did my time there, but I kind of grew up here. My grandparents always lived here, and I always came back to Greenville every summer for my grandparents, and I always loved this place. I don't know why. I think it's because it's like 2 hours away from everything. In 2 hours I can be in a big city, I can be in the mountains, I can be at the beach, I can be everywhere. So I wanted to move back here, and surprisingly enough, my career in Amarillo was wrought with many write-ups, and my personnel file was pretty high there. So I moved back here with the intention of getting back into law enforcement, because that's all I ever wanted to do. And nobody was really hiring then. And then I also knew, due to backgrounds and stuff, I knew that Chief Jerry Neal, bless his heart, would not have had fond things to say about me, in a background investigation. So I was like, well, I'll give it a little time, let that personnel file
cool
age
down.
A little bit.
Yeah, let things get a little weeded out a little.
And then those things won't be such a big deal. And so I started applying it. I was like, well, I'll be a hose dragger. Well, when I was a cop, I was like, these fucking hose draggers are cool as shit, man.
It's like a fun job.
Man, they sit around the station, man. They chill. They run these calls together. Everybody waves at them with all their fingers and everything. And I said, so let me give it a try. And so I applied at some departments. I applied at Greenville City and at Belmont Fire Department. Were the only two that were really hiring at the time. And I knew nothing about the fire service, nothing other than the calls that I'd run with the firemen as a cop. And I actually got like job offers from both, but Belmont came in like a week early, and I was like, hell,
I'm in.
And probably 9-10 years later, it was a good job. It was fun. It had the aspect of the military life. It was kind of like barracks life. You're in there with a group of people, a group of guys, and you just pull pranks on each other, and there's a lot of fart and poop jokes, and so that was a good time. Kind of went to some other departments. Went to Iraq as a contractor with the fire department or with the fire service. So that was a lot of fun. And I came back, and the Greer Fire Department was hiring, and they were the most progressive fire department at the time. They were the first DHEC certified first responder fire department in the county, and they had EMTs and intermediates, and they could start IVs. And I was like, that's some Johnny Roy shit right there. I said, that'll be cool as hell. And so I started there, and then I'd had my EMT basic from way back. When I was a cop, they actually, Amarillo was going to do a program where they had some EMTs on in police cars and stuff. So they sent me, and I never really used it. I didn't do anything with it. And so Greer sent me back through, got my EMT basic, got my intermediate, and they stuck me on the squad truck, Squad 6. So it was really like Johnny and Roy. Was on the squad truck with some really cool people. We ran all frickin' day, all frickin' night. The engine company guys are laying there sleeping, and we're out fucking just tearing the roads up and having fun. And then I started the place where I work now. It was kind of funny. I was a basic, and I got a call from somebody, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to start hiring basics." And I was like, "Greenville, that place where I work."
You can say it.
They've never hired basics, and they're like, it's happening. And then I run a call with the crew, and I'm like, "Hey, y'all are fixing to hire basics?" And they're like, "No, we're not. We had we had IST today, and they said, no, we're not. We're definitely not hiring basics.
So you're one of the original 8.
Yeah. I actually waited till I got my intermediate. I would not apply as a basic. I did not want to work here as a basic.
See, I was racking my brain. I'm like, when did I meet James Clardy? And then I was like, wait, I remember him a little from Greer, but I never went up that end. Like, I really never posted up there or worked up there. And Old Spartanburg Road and all those roads still confuse me.
Right.
I hate it up there.
Yeah.
I hate it up there. I love it up there, but I hate it. I'm confused. And then I said, I don't know him from Belmont. Pretty sure every time I saw that guy, he was in a Greer uniform. But I'm like, how the hell did he get to EMS? I remember when you were there. Because I remember you were an intermediate and a firefighter, and I was like, I can't hold it against him too hard. Then when you talked about Belmont, I was like, Redneck Romper Room Southern Annex. I like those guys. I love that station. And then I was like, man, this guy's pretty sharp. Let's hang on to this guy for a while, even though he's a part-time guy. Let's hang on to him. And then you keep going, and I'll circle back around to when you got your medic.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't want to work as a basic, but so I run that call, and it was like, no, we had IST today, and they said no.
30 days later, 8 people.
I don't even know that it was 30, man.
30 days.
Like it was just bam, turn around the corner, and they're like, we're hiring basics.
That was an October IST. I absolutely remember it.
We're hiring basics. And everybody's like, holy shit. So I waited till I was testing for my intermediate. So I was waiting on it, and I applied as soon as I got it, and I started working here. And I'd always, being a fireman around here, you run calls with EMS, and those guys back when I was especially new in the fire service and everything, and I ran the calls. I was like, those guys are the shit, guys and girls, like awesome freaking people. They showed up and they did fucking work, and they were fucking jaded, and they were hard. They were a lot like the cops that I had worked with, the older cops that I had worked with in Texas. They had that same crusty hardness, and hell, that was back when we actually had stations, and you might have got to a station that you didn't get beat down.
Yeah.
And they were still hard, and they did freaking just solid fucking work. Some of them were horrible smartasses and grouchy, and people don't remember who Steve Wilson was, but Steve Wilson was a really solid paramedic that worked here. Weird fucking guys. First guy I ever saw just eat his food with gloves on, no matter what it was, and eat with, like, he ate his sandwich with like a fork and a freaking knife. And I was like, what the fuck is this freak man? And he had some classic rants when I actually got to work with him before, but when
Those would scare me to the point where I would step away from him, and I'm like, dude, I share your pain, but I'm a little afraid.
Yeah, I can't say that.
Yeah,
I can't say that now. And now I am that person. I say that, but Steve would show up. I remember one day at Belmont, man, we'd run call after call with him, and he was not the most fireman friendly medic to ever venture out into the world of EMS. And about the third or fourth time we'd run a call with him, he was just treating us like shit, wouldn't listen to us, and then whatever. And now I know they were just busy and beat down.
Yeah.
It wasn't he didn't want to listen to me. He just wanted to get the call moving and on. And so I went back to the station. I wrote on a post-it note. I looked up a number and I wrote it down on a Post-it note. And I was like, I know we're going to run another call with this asshole, and I'm going to fucking light his ass up. And so sure enough, we run a call with him. And he gets back in the ambulance, we load the patient up, he gets in the truck to drive off, and I go and I tap on the driver's window, and he rolls it down, that exasperated look on his face. And he's like, yes. And I was like, hey, man, I said, here's a number for you. I said, you should call it. He goes, what is it? I said, it's the Walmart job line. I said, if you hate your fucking job so bad, go work here. I said, no, don't ever treat me like shit again. And he just had that look like, I'll get out of this fucking truck and just stomp your ass. But he drove off, and after that, like the next rotation, whatever, we worked with him, he and I just hit it off after that.
Right.
And we were great. And then when I worked with him on a truck, it was even better, because then he was like, now you know.
Right.
So I don't even remember where we were going with that. How I got into EMS. And
he was awesome.
So, I started working, and I knew a lot of the people that had worked here. I'd first responded, rode in, drove in, done a lot of shit with a lot of paramedics and crews here. And I started working. So a lot of people knew me. They knew at least who I was. But I knew I just had to, like, that first day on that ambulance, I knew I had to show up. I knew I had to do something. Because I wanted the respect of these people, whether I even knew them or not. Like, I didn't know Mike Cook. Mike Cook was the first guy I ever rode with on an ambulance. Third rider, post 8, Berea, day shift. I showed up. He's looking at me with absolute disdain and disgust that he is having to tolerate my part-time firefighting EMT intermediate ass that I'm going to be just another useless bag for him to carry around. And we ran the first call. I jumped in the driver's seat before he could ever get out to the truck. We took off. He's looking the call up in the map book, and I said, "Don't need that. Know where we're going." He's like, "Okay, all right." So we get there. It's a chest pain call, a complete and utter total BS chest pain call, like a 22-year-old, who's having the most horrible chest pain in the world. And I bailed out of the truck, grabbed the ALS bag out of the side compartment. I beat him to the house, and I had the guy talked out of chest pain by the time they made it to the door. He turns around and looks at me, and I said, "It's my call. I'm good." I said, We'll walk him to the stretcher. We put him on the stretcher. We throw him in there. He's like, "You need anything?" I said, "Nope, good. I'll start an IV on the way."
See you at the hospital.
Yeah, and he's like, "You're gonna start IV on the way?" I said, "Yeah, it's the only way I'm gonna get good at this shit, man." I said, "I gotta start IVs." I said, "Just repetitive shit." I said, "No big deal unless you think they're going to the waiting room." He goes, No, you're good." We jump in the truck and we haul ass, and I think that I tried to start my reputation from there. I wanted to be the first guy off the truck. I wanted to know where the fucking call was, and I wanted to get there and handle my shit without anybody else telling me what needed to be done or what had to be done.
Which is the fire service. That's fire service mentality. Yeah. Earn your seat.
Yeah.
You stand for the first year while everyone else sits to eat dinner, and be that guy. Be the guy putting in work. Whatever. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then I wrote a third ride shift with I think it was you and Dan Cressup.
See, and now this is where my Alzheimer's kicks in. Was I your training officer?
I never had one.
All right.
I had third ride time. They were like, "You're good," because that was back when we did like 3 shifts of third ride time.
Okay.
So they were like, so I did one
orientation shifts.
Yeah. So I did one with Cook.
Okay.
And then I did one with you, and then I went back to Cook.
And I was with Dan.
I believe you were with Dan.
That's good time. Whatever happened.
I don't know, man. We
was
over
awesome.
Berg Street in some sketch ass house, and I'm like, I'm going through there, and y'all were just doing your thing, and I'm over there like kicking bedroom doors open and shining flashlights in doors, and I'm looking behind shit, and I just remember, I think Cressup looked at me after, and he goes, "I like that, man." I said, "What?" And he goes, "Watching our fucking backs, man." He said, this is shit down in here. And he said, "Shit can go wrong down here." And he goes, "I like that." He said, "I like that looking in bedroom doors and stuff." I said, "Yeah." I said, I had a job once where I had to like abide by this whole Fourth Amendment shit, and I couldn't look where I wasn't, didn't have direct specific permission. I said, "Fucking great being a paramedic." I said, "I'm not bound by the Fourth Amendment. I can look and do anything." And I finished that third ride time with Cook back at Berea, and I think his partner was Wendy Martin, I believe at the time. But so it's been a little bit. So she got sick like very early in the morning. She needed to go home, and Cook was on the phone, I think, with Thompson, and I could almost hear Thompson's mumbling through the phone.
Yeah, "Why are you bothering me? You have a partner, don't you?"
And I hear him and Cook, and I walk in there, and Cook's like, "Hey, we're fixing to talk about you. So
you've been promoted.
If you want to listen, you can. If not, if you're afraid that I'm, of what you're going to hear," he said, walk out the door." And I was like, "Fuck, you're going to talk about my ass? I'm going to stand right here." And I can hear Thompson going, "Is he good enough to do second person? Because I don't have anybody to send you."
What's the difference? It was his third day anyway.
Right.
One way or the other.
So like 2 hours into my third day of third ride time, I became second man on a truck, and hearing Cook tell Thompson, he goes, "No, man, he's
nice.
as solid as half the people that work here already." So, and then the transition, working here part time, I just picked up every shift I could. I was working basically full time at the fire department, and then 36 to 48 hours at EMS a week.
And now that makes more sense. That's where I probably had my Clardy exposure. I'm like, man, this guy's around more and more. And then I think I remembered you from the fire department and was like, oh, yeah, I remember this guy. How long were you intermediate before you went to medic school? Because I know we had at least one or two conversations. I was like, dog, you got to get to paramedic school.
Yeah, we had a few, because I think it was probably, before I went to medic school, it was probably 3.5 years, probably close to 4 years that I worked part-time with full-time hours.
Right.
And I picked up a lot of shifts, and I would do, I'd pick up nighttime shifts in the summertime, so I could be at the pool and stuff with the kids during the day, and then during the school year I always worked just day shifts.
Right.
So I got a mixture of everything. Work with so many. Back then you just work with so many different people. As a part timer, you get shuffled from station to station. And,
you were the mystery meat,
and
affectionately.
Right. and because of that, because people, and that was my other thing is being that mystery meat guy, being that oh my God, who the fuck is working with today?
Part-timer.
Right. I wanted to walk through the door, sit in that seat, and prove to that person I was working with that they didn't have to fucking worry about me, that I wasn't, they weren't being saddled with.
I don't need to carry her for 12 hours,
guy,
and I got to coddle and babysit, make sure you have a good time.
Never wanted, because I heard people with, the ambulance bay and the sidewalk talk or the station talk. You find out what EMTs specifically and what paramedics are just shit.
It's a small community. I tell the students that. I tell them, your reputation starts in medic school. It's a small community, and I don't mean a small community in the upstate of South Carolina. I mean EMS.
Right, as a whole.
Things that you do back in the day follow you, and people be like, "Oh, I heard a story where you did it." I'm like, "It was 1998. Let it go." No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No. So I did that, did that whole part-time thing, and then the Greer thing really got tiring. That I was on the squad every shift. I was running, anywhere from 10 to 20 calls a shift, and then coming to EMS and doing it. And I was like, these medics make more money. They make more money than cops. They make more money than firemen. They earn that shit. But, and I really wanted to be a paramedic. I saw I was a little fucking arrogant about it, because I was like, I've been an intermediate this long, and I've worked with this many paramedics, and I could be just as good a paramedic as they are. I know this shit better than they do, and a whole lot of arrogance there to it, because it's a whole different ball game when it's easy.
When you carry the NARC key and you actually have responsibility and you're in charge of the truck for 12 hours.
It's easy to be an arrogant prick when you're the intermediate going, I knew that was a stimmy. I knew that was this. I knew this was what was going on. And it's a big difference when, like, you're the paramedic and you're sitting there with a cocky ass intermediate.
Hey, what you think about this ST segment elevation? What you think?
Right. Yeah, it's a whole different ball.
I know what I think. I'm just testing you because you might go to medic school.
So went to medic school, came out as quit Greer, transitioned to full time at EMS as an intermediate. Worked with a guy that's fixing to retire. Worked with Mike Davis on a power truck. One of those 14-hour fucking power trucks.
Who trained that guy? I wonder.
I don't know. And man, and Mike was he's slow as fucking Christmas. Talks slow.
I'm sure he'll listen to this.
I hope so. Does everything slow, and taught me how to be a fucking paramedic.
I'm going to say, and genuinely cares about every single person he takes care of.
Taught me how to be a paramedic, man. He let me do stuff. He let me make decisions. He backed my play on stuff. He told me when I was wrong.
Also because that guy took his paramedic class when the book was green and on loose leaf paper in a binder and wasn't bound together. Yeah. So not like it was his first rodeo. And
super freaking partner to have when you're learning how to be a paramedic. Just super guy. Doesn't get worked up over much. We delivered a baby one day, and you walk in, it's like first.
We did too.
First delivery, and it's like, oh, we're gonna have time, and we, the mom's sitting there, and Mike's like, there's no lights in this apartment, there's nothing, and he's like, well, take a look and see what you got, and So, I mean, I get a little flashlight down there, and she's got her legs raised up, knees to her fucking chin, and she's crying and pushing. I look down, and he goes, well, what is it? And I said, unless there's supposed to be hair in the hole, we're in trouble. And so he opened up the OB kit. It's got like half the shit in it. It's like only half. It's like one clamp. It's like a half a scalpel, nothing in it. And Mike just calmly as could be just goes, hey, man, want to go to the truck? I'll get the other OB kit.
Stay here.
Be right back. Don't go nowhere. And he just walks off. Like, I'm like, run, motherfucker, run. Leave me in here. And we delivered that baby, but he just never got worked up. And I'd seen other paramedics like, oh, I got 2 patients now. I got to have another truck.
Where's the other unit? Call a helicopter.
Davis was like,
let's go.
Put mom on the stretcher, put baby on the stretcher. We got everything done.
Yeah, he's out.
All
let's
that
go.
shit. And he goes, let's go. He said,
our part's over.
I said, 1 or 3, and he goes, 1.
Why? They're fine.
1.
Not sick.
1. What? Like I was an idiot. And so he was a great. He really was to get through paramedic school. Man, he taught me a lot, and I learned a lot from a lot of people that sucked as paramedics too, working as there. I mean, I kind of learned what I didn't want to be.
It's always good to learn. It's good to learn how not to be what you don't want to become. And we have that in our classrooms, our cohorts every year. The students come. Some student will come in tears. Oh my God, this happened. I'm like, well, look. You learned what you don't want to be as a role model. Like that was what you don't want to become. So learn. You learn something from it.
Right.
And move on. And you're probably not going to do that when you have students soon.
Right. It's no. I did a Facebook post not too long ago about what kind of medic. And people always ask what makes a good medic, what makes a bad medic, whatever. What kind of paramedic are you, or what kind of paramedic is this person when you're riding around? And I did this whole post on that I'm paramedic gumbo. I'm just a big stew of things, and there's some really good parts of that gumbo. I love shrimp and sausage in my gumbo, and people like John McCarley are the shrimp and sausage to my gumbo. They're the most awesome people that I've ever worked with, just great people. And then there's some other people, I'm not going to mention names, but I don't eat onions, and I don't like onions.
Right.
But my gumbo needs some fucking onions to add some flavor.
Right.
So I take those people that a little unsavory, not particularly my cup of tea, that I learned what not to do from, and you got to throw that shit in there too.
Right.
You're
not going to learn without it.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. But so in transition from intermediate to paramedic, and
I was super proud when you got that medic. I'm not saying that for this. I'm just saying I was like, that's awesome. And I remember saying that too. I probably know I said it to your face.
I was, yeah, and I appreciate it. And there were a lot of people. There was you. There was a lot of people like about
time, right? Well, what took you so long? And I probably also said I was mad that you didn't come through here.
Right.
I understood why you didn't. I was just happy that you had that patch and you could get to doing some work.
Yeah, it was good. And I honestly, out of all this shit, I've graduated, Paris Island. I've graduated School of Infantry. I've done a lot of things. The police academy, fire academy classes, and I don't know, man. Paramedic ranks way the fuck up there with what I'm proud of doing, because it's an awesome line of work. It is truly. People ask me, I'm the trifecta. People ask me all the time on the truck. Well, what did why you do this and not? You didn't like being a cop, or you didn't like being a fireman? I'm like, loved being a cop.
Right.
Had great aspects to it. Had wonderful, wonderful aspects to it. Loved, and I tell people, what I loved about being a cop was I loved the freedom to go create my own work if I wanted to. I could be a lazy ass and drive around and ignore a bunch of shit and just answer radio calls. I loved the fire department. I loved the station life and the operating as a company, as a team. It kind of tied in that Marine Corps thing with me, and I'm like, but I really love being a paramedic because I actually see a lot of results to what I fucking do, to what I know, to what I'm performing. I said, I really, as cliche as it sounds, you get into this line of work, you get into public safety because there's some innate want to change somebody's life, to be there for somebody. Like I wanted to be that cool guy that changed somebody's fucking life,
right.
Did something. And as a paramedic, I do that more. We bitch about the calls that we don't make a difference, but there's more calls that we do make a difference than what anybody else is doing. I mean, most firemen aren't dragging people out of a damn house fire every day, but almost every day I have the chance of running a cardiac arrest,
right,
and getting a damn ROSC on that,
right,
getting a save,
right,
or anything, or just identifying a STEMI, or running that trauma and being skillful and fast. I mean, that's what I love about trauma. Trauma is just balls to the wall, fucking fast. You got to be. There's skills to do. That the patient needs a damn surgeon. They don't really need me. They just need me to do some shit really fucking quick.
Right.
That's fun.
Make the right decisions.
That's fun.
Super quick.
And that's what that's the difference in all those and being a paramedic. And so that's why I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of that paramedic patch. I do some fucking work out there, and I'm proud of that. But transitioning, everybody came. They were patting me. You were patting me on my back. Everybody's patting me on my back.
It was a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there's only been a few of you that's been a big deal to. I can think of maybe 3 people off the top of my head in the last maybe 10 or 15 years that we were like, dude, this is it. We got him now on the medic side.
Yeah, that and with that, man, that ego, the ego and the arrogance really popped up there. I was like, yeah, until you run that first shit fucking call, and you're like, God,
you're humbled.
Fuck, man,
quick.
I just want to be an intermediate again.
Yeah, it was a lot easier when I was just starting a line.
Yeah.
This was cool.
Yeah, I mean, because I think I had my paramedic patch, I don't know, not long, and just as I don't know if it's a failure of the system or I just slipped through the cracks or whatever. I never worked with the FTO even as a
right. We transitioned you, but that was again. So when you say failure of the system, I think I've questioned that a couple times with a couple of those other people where I thought where the medics, the existing medics, while you were going through school or these people were going through school, we created that because we would talk you up. And, we wanted to build you up.
Right.
And I think we precepted you and said, you need a little work here. But I think more of it was like, man, you're doing a great job. I wish I had more students like you, blah, 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 blah. And then when you come out, you're just like, I know it's day 1, but I really feel like it's year 3.
Right.
Where I know my protocols. I've seen everything. They let me do cool stuff. And then you run a couple calls where you are responsible. You do carry the NARC key. You do make decisions, and all of a sudden it's, that didn't go like I thought. That didn't go like it used to go. And, oh, wait, I was the one who made that decision. And, you get humbled. And I thought a few people, I always felt like that was detrimental. And people would come to me and they would, the typical, when we were FTOs, they, not the best behavior, like, oh, so-and-so, they're fucking up left and right. Whatever happened, everybody said they were an awesome student. They were an awesome student,
right.
And we built them up, and we didn't make their head any bigger. But I think we had such an expectation that they would know where we were as 5- and 6-year medics who walked around that place like, there's nothing that bothers me. I've seen every call. You run one gunshot, you run them all. Blah blah blah. There's nothing I can't learn. Why do I go to Con Ed? What's next for me? We wanted somebody close to that. And there, you're not there.
Yeah.
It's different. You have that exposure and that experience as that intermediate, and then you're it. You're responsible, and you're like, all right. Now it's when you say taught me how to be a paramedic. Your school taught you the skills and the methodology, and then you had to go learn it. And that's a recurring theme in these, and I love when the students hear it because they have those great expectations and they get beat down, and then they build themselves back up and. We're pretty lucky to have people like that. So.
Yeah, I love. I mean, and I like talking to students about that now. And I like even when we do the adjunct thing over at the med school, even talking to them because I hope Phil Head's not listening, but I don't actually do skill stuff the entire time we're in those rooms. I like just learning where these kids come from and their background, and we tell some more stories because they feel like it's really cool shit. And,
right.
But I tell them all, I was like, it's amazing when you get humbled, and to me, if you don't embrace that call that humbles you, if you don't, I can tell anybody, man, I can tell people my screw ups, man. I ran a stupid call that was like a fall in a buffet type restaurant. I was with one of my favorite all time partners, Travis Scott. It was like working with my kid.
Your son.
It was like just raising my kid. same age as my older kids and stuff. And Travis was so new but has like the soul of an old man. It's really is crazy. But he was such a good partner. But he was a basic at the time, and we run this call for this stupid nothing fall, and I get there and this little old lady, she's elderly and she's pale and diaphoretic and she's not responding appropriately. And I don't know why I walked through the door and I was so tunneled in that this was cardiac related. She had a syncopal episode. That's why I looked at it. She had a syncopal episode. And that's all this was. This was cardiac related, and I was going to run this 12 lead. And I'd been so good at catching just stimmies off some weird presentations and shit that I got to where I thought this is a stimmy.
The
I know it
whisperer.
is. I know it. We're in the middle of a buffet line, and so we pick her up, we put her on a stretcher, and we start like really doing an assessment while we're moving to the truck on the stretcher. And I'm telling Travis, I was like, it's cardiac, man. It's cardiac. It's cardiac. That's all I could think about, man. It's just this. Her whole issue was her heart. I knew it. I was wrong, but I didn't catch being wrong until probably about halfway to the hospital. And I run the 12 lead, and it's like unremarkable. And her pressure's fucking way up there, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this old lady? Why is she not responding appropriately? I'm thinking it's a single episode. I keep thinking she's going to come around. She's going to come around. She just sudden drop in blood pressure. If it's not a STEMI, she just had a vasovagal response, and it's going to come up. She's going to start responding appropriately. And somewhere on 385, her disconjugate gaze finally caught my gaze, right. And she vomited profusely and projectilely, if projectile is even a word. The contents of the entire buffet.
Yeah, that buffet, right? Yeah,
everywhere. And as she's doing that, and I'm flailing around trying to, I don't know, not get vomit on me, do whatever, and freaking out because I still, even at that time, I'm like, nothing's registering completely about what's going on. That this is, and what it was, she fell, she hit her head. Now, right. She may have had a vasovagal response.
Sure.
And she fell and hit her head.
Right.
But now she's bleeding in her
But now she's
brain.
Gonna bleed. Right.
And shit's going south rapidly. She's, we have a compromised airway with copious vomit.
Right.
And I'm screaming at Travis to stop. And I don't even know why I wanted to stop. I really, at this point, if I did that same thing today, I'd be like, hey man, drive a little bit faster, or, whatever. And then I was like, just stop and get back here.
Right.
I wanted him to hold me.
Yeah, I need somebody to just kind of commiserate with a little bit.
I just wanted him to like hold my hand. I wanted to like curl up like a little baby and cry. And I had one IV and I pulled it out when I was doing shit. Now blood's going everywhere. And I'm like, this call sucks ass.
Right.
And
it was a whole lot simpler when it was a vasovagal response.
I'd already called the hospital
right.
and now I'm trying to get another line. And Travis gets out and I got the lady roll and we're suctioning and Travis like, you want to call for help? I'm like, fuck no, I don't want to help. I don't want anybody to see this.
No, yeah.
I don't want anybody to know this is going on.
Never tell anyone about this.
Man, and we pull up at the hospital and I go in and the nurses are like, what is this? And I was like, this needs to be in the trauma bay probably.
Stroke alert.
Yeah. So,
oops.
and I, and I have no problem telling that. I fucked a pooch on that one and I got tunneled in on one particular thing, and I just ran with that ball and never looked back, and screwed the pooch on that one. But I guarantee you that shit ain't happened again. So that and many other mistakes, and I like telling everybody that. But that was how my medic shit started. Progressed. I've worked like the power trucks. I've worked Bravo shift. I've worked Alpha shift. I was at Payne and Junior's ass for a few years.
You're still working that temporary reassignment to Delta. I was thinking of that the other day. I was like, yeah, Clark, I hope he gets enough sleep when he comes in. I was like, Delta shift, night shift. I was like, you know what? He's still on a temporary reassignment to Delta shift from a couple years ago.
Yeah. And I did a temporary one to C shift. I like to be able to claim that I've worked every shift, and I've done some 6-8 month little stints on Charlie, and then for whatever it is, I like change sometimes. Some things I don't like to change. Some things I get really bored with. Being on the same shift, same time slot, I tend to get bored with. And so there was a little email put out. Hey, if you want to volunteer, go to Delta shift for 6 months. And need to help them out. They're shorthanded, needed an FTO, needed a field training officer, and I was like, shit, I'll go.
Yeah, why not?
And because one of those, the lieutenant on that shift at the time was one of the guys that kind of contributed to my paramedic gumbo. Fucking Big Daddy Dave, man. I mean, just a good, solid lieutenant and a good, solid boss. I mean, he's one of those guys that if you fuck up and you walk through the door, he may yell at you. He may bite your head off. And then when it's over, it's done with. You walk out and it's done.
Yeah.
And he treats you fair. I mean, I always love that about Dave. He treats you fair, and that's all anybody really can expect out of a boss. Just treat me fair, man. You can yell at me, you can holler at me. It doesn't bother me. Your bark doesn't bother me, man. Hell of a rescue guy, man. I mean, hell of a fucking rescue guy. If Dave didn't know how to cut a damn car apart, I just don't know who would have.
Right.
Ran some extrications and stuff with Dave, and ran a call. I was actually working with the great Aaron Dix of the Nursing Home Fire podcast.
He's one of 6 listeners to this podcast.
Right. Yes. And this car was so torn up, and this guy was so entrapped, and I just remember the fire department came, and there was one guy on a truck, and Aaron's like whirling around like a whirling dervish and trying to get this guy. He's going to get this guy nasally tubed in the car because he's trapped, and we're going to do all this shit. And the fireman, I knew him, so he walks up. He goes, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "Well, we got to get this guy out of the car." He goes, "Where do you want me to start?" And Aaron like walks by, and he goes, and he looks at Aaron. He goes, "What do you need? What do you need me to do?" And Aaron said, "Where's everybody else?" And he goes, "I'm it." Aaron said, "I need you to go get more fucking people." Right. And Dave showed up, and we were discussing the extrication, and I'm like, I'm expecting some like great technical advice from Dave on this extrication. Just some grab light. I was really expecting like a light to come on out of the sky, like Dave to like fucking hover some shit and come up with some
the way that you're going to approach this.
Right. Just
look at the physics behind it.
Some genius. And Dave goes, "Fuck, I don't know. Just tell him to start cutting somewhere."
Yeah, if you cut somewhere, we'll peel enough away from here. Peel the car away. Yeah. Right.
So that was I've been on Delta shift ever since, it's been the best time of my career, of my 20 some odd years in public safety. This stint on Delta shift, I can't imagine right now being anywhere else. And night shift, I can tell you, it's a different world. It is, in some ways, it's been the absolute best part of my career, and some parts of it the worst. I think it's been a marriage destroyer for me, the night shift thing.
I hear a lot of that.
It doesn't work in that night shift with your family's working regular hours. Just doesn't jive in jihad sometimes, and things happen. It is what it is, and the bad part is I'm like, wouldn't change and come off nights. I mean, I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how that really makes me feel, or what kind of person that really makes me. I really don't know if somebody came and said, "Hey, go to days and shit might work." I'm like, no, it won't, because I'll be fucking miserable. Right. And so Delta's been my favorite, and I don't, the people on there, the people I work with that have been on there, that have come and gone, and the new people that they've put on there, I don't know, maybe I put them up on a little pedestal that they're probably really no different than the other shifts, but to me, they're different, man. They're truly.
I think there's always a difference. I think we can always see that, because when I was full-time, C shift was that was the shift. We were the most educated. We had the most longevity. Nobody messed with us. If you were talking about night shift, a lot of people talk bad about D shift.
Oh, it used to be called dumb shift.
Yeah, some other things too. and again, you still, when I stepped back and I looked at it and I grew up a little bit, it was because they were young. And now they're the leaders on the shift, and they're passing it on to the new kids that are on that shift. And there's a lot. And I like when I'm able to work night shift. It's past my bedtime now. That I like working that shift, and mostly because my wife works at the hospital on that shift, and I get to see her at the hospital, and that's cool. But you can see the education there. You can see the experience. And then you look at the other shifts and you're like, man, C shift is the D shift of 2005. you know?
Yeah, I
and
think so.
it always kind of makes that real cyclical.
Yeah.
It'll come full circle, and then, you know, we used to joke back in the day that C shift train day shift.
Right.
You know, everybody awesome would be on C shift for a couple of years and then be like, I want to go to days. And like A shift would be like the superior, like awesome experience shift. And it really wasn't until I came to the college that I understood. I used to, I think, probably lie to myself about why. I mean, I know why I like night shift because admin wasn't there.
Right.
Lying. I liked that autonomy, and our lieutenant gave us that, and our sergeants did too. But when I started working day shift, I was like, oh my God, it's totally different calls, like we always said. Like, when that's, you know, I don't want to go to the doctor's office anymore. Right? Isn't the doctor here to do something? Well, yeah, we got to take him to the hospital. Well, you did all the fun stuff.
Right.
You shouldn't have come to the doctor's office. Call from your house next time. I want to do the IV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do the EKG.
I want to tell you you're having a STEMI.
Yeah. Or you look at the EKG and the doc's like, they're having a STEMI. And I'm like, they have pericarditis.
Yeah,
But
right.
we'll take them to the hospital. Well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you're explaining global ST elevation and STEMI imposters to some, like, you know, brand new doc. Or I had a PA one night freaking out. She tells this poor man, 33 years old, he's having a heart attack. And I was like, when we were still Simpsonville post 9, right across the driveway from the hospital, half asleep, told my partner, I was like, get the truck, meet me over there. And I go over, tucking my shirt in, whatever. And this guy's like, he's almost in tears. I was like, what's wrong, sir? And he's like, I'm having a heart attack. I was like, do you have chest pain? Yeah. She hands me the EKG. She's like, yeah, it's pretty bad. She said that in front of the patient. I said, well, no, I don't think you're having a heart attack. She's like, what do you mean? It's right there. I was like, well, you know, it's everywhere, actually. And he looks great. This guy looks awesome. Super fit, 33-year-old.
Lean forward, sir.
Right. And he's like, I was like, what, you know, what brought you in? He's like, well, I'm a drug rep. So he's like, so I know I'm around medical people a lot. He goes, just didn't feel good. I'm burning and this. I said, you've been feeling bad for a couple of days? Like cough, cold, fever, flu? He's like, yeah, I just got over it. I was like, real quick, can you hang your feet off the bed for me? Here comes my partner with a stretcher. I said, real quick, just hang your feet off. I said, lean forward like you're sitting on the toilet. And he does it. I said, you feel better? He's like, yeah. I was like, cool. Get off the bed, hop onto our bed. I was like, it's called pericarditis. You have an infection around your heart. We'll fix you up. So we transport him to the cath lab, 33 years old. And it's the middle of the night, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Head up the connector, you know, whatever, no big deal. Get in there, the doc, he's all hooked up, apron, gown, glove, ready to go. I was like, yeah, this is pericarditis, doc. And he's like, yeah. He's like, well, we're here. We had to come to call-in team. He goes, might as well shoot some dye. And I was like, well, he's a drug rep, so he's probably got the money for it.
Yeah,
so,
you got good insurance.
I was like, you mind if I hang out? He's like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. So he does it, does a cath. He's like, yep, everything looks great. He's like, paramedic was right. And I was like, you guys have a good night. I'm out. I was like, sir, I hope you feel better. Yeah. But, you know, again, that's, you know, that was it. And, you know, in the back of your head, you're like, I bet D shift couldn't figure that out.
Right. You know, and you talk about, like, yeah, the reason I like it is the admin. I come in at 4. I've worked 5 to 5, 4 to 4. I've worked 8 to 8. Now I don't 4
like 4 to 4 that was fun.
Yeah.
I like that shit.
That 8 to 8 shit, man. I got to get home before the sun comes up, and it fucks me up if I don't. And 5 to 5 was good mainly because there was really good people when I worked on 5 to 5. Young, like really young, eager, just love the fucking job. Newer paramedics. Diabetic Ben.
I don't know if you can say that.
I think I can. That's his name now. I mean, fuck people. I think even the damn supervisor's like, Diabetic Ben's up.
It's a lot different though because there's no other Ben though.
Right.
Like it's only Ben.
Right. It's only Ben.
You throw the diabetic moniker in there.
Had to be Diabetic Ben, man. Funniest kid in the. He's got just a kind of a little slower, dry humor and he is diabetic, and he jokes about his insulin pump being his robo pancreas. You know, some people wear their hearts on their sleeves. Well, he wears his pancreas on his belt, and man, super fucking good paramedic.
Yep.
Good person.
My student.
Right. And that's a lot of these were. I mean, you look at the people like him and the other people on 5 to 5 were, you know, like Andy was on 5 to 5, and Andy's absolutely just a freaking ball of energy, a joy to work with, a pain in the ass to work with. He's just a kid that loves what he's doing.
I enjoy it.
He's enjoying the hell out of the job, and he's pretty fucking good at it. They've just become really good. So I love the 5 to 5. The 4 to 4 came available, and I was like, get home a fucking hour earlier. I can get up. I can start drinking earlier.
My day.
Yeah. So the 4 to 4, and it's been awesome. I love the 4 to 4 time slot. It's great. But I come in at 4, man, and fucking admin's bailing out the door when I come in. And as long as they're not hanging around to have a meeting with me, I feel like I'm pretty good. The traffic, I get a little bit of that afternoon rush hour traffic and stuff that can, that keeps me just angry and salty enough to do some other things in my life, and then the night shift rolls around, man, and we get that evening shift boost from fucking 5 till midnight, 1 o'clock, and then from 1 o'clock to about 3 o'clock we run the typical drunk ass bar stuff on the weekends and the fun stuff and the wrecks and stuff, and then when it kind of starts dying down a little bit, I go home and I do my game ball post and go get some sleep. And so I love that time slot. I love the people that I work with and the supervisors. They've allowed me to, back as far even when Dave was still our lieutenant and stuff, they allowed me to kind of roll with some of the stuff that I wanted to do, like what C shift and all the other shifts hate. They hate my hashtag. They hate my hashtag Delta Doc shit. They give me shit for it, and I love it because the more that they give me shit for it, the more I know they're really paying attention to me.
Absolutely.
They're paying attention to us, and so I love that part. And I still work overtime on the other night shift. I tried to avoid day shift like the fucking plague, but yeah, I mean, so I've enjoyed it, and it's brought me all the way to kind of where I'm at. Is I'm kind of the old man on Delta shift now, and I don't know when that happened. I became the old man.
If you had to renumber the badges right now, you would be like Delta 6.
Yeah.
And out of 35 people on the shift, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Reserved for corporals back in the day after the rescue techs got the low numbers. So I appreciate that segue. Because I struggled with the theme because you wouldn't help me, and I probably knew in the back of my head what it was going to be one way or the other, and it's absolutely the morale end of it because you've been called some names, brother.
Yes,
and I mean a lot that we can say on a podcast because the FCC don't care evidently because we're not a network, and. 4-letter words, a lot of things that end in ER, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But one that ends in ER, pretty recent, for a while now. You probably don't realize it, but it's been cheerleader, number 1. And you smirked a little like, cheerleader, I don't want to be cheerleader, I want to be salty old fuck. No. I mean, yeah, you are. I get it, when you need to be. But you've been cheerleading, dog. You've been cheerleading a lot. And I really did not realize how long it was. First of all, I lose a lot of concept of time behind this desk at the school. And even when I was behind the desk back at EMS the other year, I lose concept of time. It's like being in a movie theater with cheerleader. And it's 100% due to those game balls. First of all, what is the game ball? Describe it for people who don't, the people who listen probably know. But for the 4 other people across the world who listen to this, who don't know where any of those people that I probably have to track down now and get releases to sign because we said their names.
Right.
Even though we were saying the nicest things in the world. Whatever, the game recognized game. What's the game ball? I mean, you tell it in your words, and then I got some comments.
I think I started. I'm a sports guy, and I relate everything in life back to sports. I love sports movies. I like watching sports. So my youngest son plays football.
Also, the problem I couldn't get you on the show last year.
Yeah. I mean, there's only 2 things in this world, and that's football season and going to work. That's about it. And So, being that sports guy, there's always the end of game. You go to the locker room, the game's over. You've busted your ass for the whole 60 minutes, the 9 innings, the whole time. And some coach stands up and calls out and recognizes some guy, some guy, some girl, somebody on the team that just kicked ass that day or that night and just did a hell of a job, and they get the game ball.
Right.
They get that ceremonial, sometimes literal game ball that they get to take home. They put on a mantle. They put it somewhere. I'm a sports guy because I sucked at sports. I had the mind to play. I had the desire to play. I lacked a really key component to playing, which was called talent.
Right.
I was an okay Little League baseball player. I was an okay football player. I was okay at a lot of things in sports, but I never, ever got a game ball playing sports. I mean, unless I was like the guy that, toted the water bottle the best or whatever. And I always wanted to be that sports guy. I just didn't, it wasn't in me. It wasn't what I was. So I don't know, man. I don't even remember when or where it started. I think
I floated through a lot of social media posts, dude. I data mined the shit out of your page, and I couldn't pinpoint it.
Right.
I know it's a while back though.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I think one of the first ones I can remember went out to a guy that's like no longer here, and I don't even know if I put it out as a game ball or just kind of put it out as, there was some shit that went on today that a crew did one hell of a damn job, and I can tell you it goes back to the whole Aaron Dix thing, because Aaron Dix put a fire in the providers of the place where I work about cardiac arrest management.
And that, I was going to say that, and I thought that this was a continuance when we stopped with the big ceremonies.
Yeah.
I thought it was something to kind of keep going, and I couldn't pinpoint it, and I had to sit and think. But again, my Alzheimer's kicks in horribly now. But that really, I thought that was it, and I was like, man, I think the earliest posts were like, good job on getting rocks or working a code. And then it just kind of evolved, and
Right.
and I'll tell you again, slow on the uptake. I remember when you started using different terms, you started saying about the real nurses, and I was like, real nurses, real nurses, and I was like, well, Clardy don't have any nurses in the family, so I thought maybe you were talking about the typical the ED versus the ICU nurse rivalry, like that's pretty well known, but I was like, real nurses. Oh wait, it's RN, like nursing, like
Right.
RN, and I was
RN.
like, oh my god, that's cool as shit, that's clever as
Real
hell.
nurses.
I was like, all right, and not just the ED nurses.
Right.
It was these are the real nurses that understand EMS, understand what we're doing out there, what we're bringing them.
Yeah.
and I was like, dude, that's super cool.
Yeah, and that is the real nurses. I love that part of it. And the real nurses that I know, the people that I know, are ER nurses. Mm-hmm. They're to me, they are the real nurses.
Right.
They're in the shit.
Literally, because if you were
Yeah.
going to give the hospital an enema,
Yeah.
the ED is
Yeah.
where you would
Yeah.
stick the tube.
And so I think that like the first to go back, I don't know if this was actually the first or not, but it was a ROSC on the side of, I think, the interstate that was gotten by Mike Nervous Purvis. I think he was working with
Listening from Texas.
Yeah, I hope he is. Miss you, Purvis. You nervous little. Anyways, I had some really good calls with him too. And Tara Clark at the time, Tara Kastner, affectionately known as the Tara Medic. Great person, hard worker. She's Canadian. That's the only thing I can really hold against her. And fire department.
Right.
And I think I did it. I said something about it because it was just an awesome job. That the whole call was when Aaron Dix would preach to us, and it was like preaching. It was like, a little Jewish guy can preach, and he would start up there about the chain of survival, and that whole chain starts with that call's made, and that bystander puts their hands on somebody's chest and starts pumping, and it progresses. That chain just progresses and just interlinks everything together. And this call was one of those when I talked to to Purvis at the hospital, it was like they showed up. Some guy just driving by on the interstate stops, sees this guy collapse. He fucking runs over. He calls 911. He hits the fucking ground, knees in the gravel on the side of a road, pumping on this guy's chest. And the fire department gets there and they take over their thing. They throw the AED on. They pop this guy one time and they start back CPR. And then the ambulance shows up and bam, they're doing some ALS shit. They're fucking tubing this guy. They've got, they got drugs going. They're continuous. They pop him again. Hey, we got a pulse with that? Fuck yeah, we got a pulse with that. We got a ROSC. Hey, run the 12 lead. Let's get him in the truck. Run the 12 lead. Hey, he's having a STEMI, and transport him to the hospital. And this guy's like going up to the cath lab, waking up.
Right.
And I was like, that's
right.
awesome.
And in your head, you're checking off that link in the chain.
I was like, man, I wish I'd have been. That's the bad part is I'm like, I wish I'd have been on that call.
Right.
I want to be on that call with them. I want to do that. And I remember I made the post, and then I saw some guys from, and they came up, man, and they were like, patting me on the back and fist bumping and high fiving, and they were like, thank you.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't know what happens after these people leave, and sometimes we don't even know. And that was what one of them said. Like, man, I'm just doing whatever they tell me to do.
Yeah, right.
I don't even really know what's going on.
I showed up. I did what they asked.
And he's like,
we weren't available.
And he was a younger fireman. He was like, he said, did we really save that guy's life?
Yeah.
And I said, fuck yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I said, like, he's going to walk out of that hospital. I think he did too. I said, he's going to walk out of that hospital. He goes, and he's like, that was the shit. And he goes, and you put it on Facebook.
Right.
I said, yeah. I said, I kind of got to be careful. I said, I can't put specifics. I can't put
right.
But I said, but you knew. He goes, yeah. He says, man, that meant a lot to me. And I was like, and I really thought to myself, why the fuck does my Facebook post mean a lot to you?
Dude, it was an instant, people instantly gravitated toward it. And I was like, this is awesome. And it's to watch it progress. And even when it's not good, there's times, it's always the game ball. You're always putting out the positive stuff, and it's been people who've done well, people who dealt with tough stuff on a shift, things that happened to you on the crew, things that happened to other people, things that happened in the ED, whatever it was, the fire department, the police department treating cops. Cops have been in accidents, and then to see people comment. You could easily, for me to divide it into two comments. And I'll take a couple screenshots and throw some in the show notes so everybody can get an idea. But I like when the people who are tagged say something else about it. And then people who weren't there, that's the second type of comment is like, man, I enjoy these immensely, or like this, this made my day. I needed to read this today, or I just came on to shift and I hope we have a shift like this. And then as they've evolved, I've seen it. This is recently for me personally. I've been asking. I see other people not really copy it, but I see a lot more providers, and not just at our agency. I see them in other agencies in the upstate that are like. I recently had somebody who, I'll throw her out there because she'll get a kick out of it. I saw Michelle in write something about a brand new medic, one of our graduates, and she was almost. If I say Michelle and was gushing, would you believe? You wouldn't believe that word at all, right? And she was saying like how good this new paramedic was, and she thinks she's gonna do really well. And I was like, man, that's awesome. I said, I texted her and I said, I think that's awesome that you wrote that. I said, did you tell her to her face? And she's like, yeah, I did. Before I posted it, I was like, that's awesome.
Right.
And I think that's made a lot of other people move toward that. Like I know it's a lot easier to write things because maybe you feel weird saying that to somebody. I thought it was always easy as an FTO where you were always doing like a structured debrief. You're like, Clardy, that was awesome. And that was good. That was a good catch on that PE on that call. Man, I didn't even catch that. Good job. Keep up the good work. But like, it was like, that's business. Like that seems like business, but it's like at the end of a shift, and like when you go home, you're like, "Dog, you're doing a great job. You're really gonna make a name for yourself here. Keep it up. If there's any way I can help you, I think you're doing a great job." And this will make it. This will be the downer part. When I was, I told my wife, I said I felt bad. I was trying to look. I thought when I knew I'd written these notes. I went back looking, and I just kind of went into my Evernote program where I take a lot of notes through that. And I put in podcast, and so it brought up everything. So there's a ton of titles that say podcast ideas for like the last year. And and I have stuff written down too, and I found it where it was written, plus where it was in the electronically. And it said like, types of podcasts. Like I get Clardy in here for the cheerleading and the morale end of it, because that's the guy. So it's bad because it was on the same page. It was like Dean Douglas. Talk about the evolution of EMS and dinosaurs in EMS. I was like, ugh, it's never going to happen now. But it had you both on the same page. He used to respond to that crazy, and was just like, Clardy's got it figured out. Like I remember him saying it. Clardy's got that figured out. This is one of the best things you can do for the up and comers. And I was like, and I can tell. Like I always get worried because there'll be a couple weeks, or maybe there was about a month and a half period, almost 2 months, man, that you didn't have anything written. And I was like, Clardy's not cheerleading. Wonder what's going on over there, or I wonder if he's okay. Well, I would text you, be like, Dog, where you been? What have you been up to? Yeah. And then after a while, whatever, it's just like everything else at EMS, it's cyclic. Things get better, or something changes, and you're like, they started coming out again. Or I was in the back of my head, I was like, maybe people are like, dude, where are the fucking game balls? It's the only thing that's getting me through 12 hours. Like, it makes me want to come back, or it makes me want to work overtime. And, I see people write, man, my one goal in this quarter is to get a Clardy game ball. And nurses say it. I've heard cops say it. I've heard firefighters say it.
It's freaking crazy, man.
It is crazy. And there's nothing nuts. Physical. Like, I've been so busy this last week getting ready for this. I really wanted to have a foam Nerf ball here with the stencils on it that says the Delta Doc thing with the little saying. Yeah. And be like, Dog, I want you to give this to people. Give this.
I'm actually working on having some made.
Awesome.
And it is crazy. It's crazy that I started it, and it became where I sucked in sports. I was always semi good at writing in school. I could write a story. My grandfather was a storyteller and lived a freaking crazy ass life. Was a loan shark at 13 at the Piedmont Mill. He ran moonshine. He was the first
enterprising young man.
Right. He was the first member of NASCAR in South Carolina and the 25th member of NASCAR overall. Race cars, ran shine. Was like mobbed up with some people in Philadelphia during World War II, like counterfeiting gas stamps and smuggling silk hose for ladies because all the silk was dedicated to parachutes and stuff. And he could tell a story, and he could just tell a story and hold a room. And people that had no idea what the hell he was talking about and probably had no interest in some of the shit he was talking about would just stop and listen to him tell a story. And there's an old Irish thing that the Shaughnessy is the storyteller of the family, and so I always could tell a little bit of a story, and then progressively that the Delta Dot game ball kind of became therapeutic for me. It helped me get through some things, some calls that just bothered the shit out of me that I didn't know why. All of a sudden, somewhere in my career, all of a sudden, I just overflowed, and something. All of a sudden, some shit started bothering me that had never bothered me before, and it became therapeutic. I talked about it. I sat and I typed and I talked about it. Going to bed, it helped me sleep a little bit, but it was just therapeutic for me, and then it helped. One of the other reasons is I got family. I got a few friends that aren't paramedics or whatever. More so, I've got some family that have friends that are not paramedics or cops or firemen, and they, somehow stumble across my thing because of my family, and I wanted people to know. I wanted people to know what the hell goes on when the lights go down. And shit, when nobody else is awake, there's this roving, band of degenerates out here just putting in solid ass work and doing some shit, and they're tired, and I wanted people to know that there's good stuff that goes on. And so it just became therapeutic for me and let people kind of be informative and let people know. And I just always liked coaches that inspire, leaders that can stand up and make you, there was leaders in the Marine Corps that could stand up in front of you and give you that same tip of the freaking spear speech. And it's the same speech. Every Marine's always gotten the same speech. It's the tip of the spear. And I always said, it's part of that thing is I want to be that guy. So I use that. So it's therapeutic. It's all that. And then all of a sudden, man, you brought up Dean, and
I do that too.
Whew.
All right,
that's a little tough one.
I know it shouldn't,
because I had stopped. I was catching shit from admin about it, and they don't get it.
No,
they just don't understand.
Dude, it's one of the best recruitment and morale tools, and it's free.
Yeah,
and it's free within the limitations of our loosely worded social media policy.
Right. And so they don't get it, but I've been catching hell about it, and I catch hell from other people. There's people that I work with that are like, just, there's another game ball post, blah, 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 and whatever. And
Which it throws me for a loop when I see that, and I think, like, man, are you mad because your name's not in it? I understand things a lot better. Looking back, how important it is, like, how important that morale piece is, and like you've no idea how much it makes me feel good to hear you say you're a writer, because I've been kind of probing around EMS for people. I think there's a lot of talent out there. And I think a lot more people write than they let on, whether it's a journal or it's on the computer or someone's trying to write the next book or their memoir. We don't have a lot of those. And I think it's because people go, well, people don't understand what we do on night shift, or people don't understand the fucking, who wants to read about fucking bullshit toe pain? No, I don't want to read about that. But I want to read that interspersed with some crazy call. Did you and I not intubate 3 people back to back one night? Yeah. People want to read that. Right. Our friends want to read that. Entertaining as shit to us. I mean, I remember intubating that dude on that bench outside that shithole bar. And I was like, didn't we just do this 12 minutes ago? And then it became a game. How fast can we dump him off at the hospital? And then we went right back out for 2 and 3. And I was like, dude, is this real life? Yeah. Did we just do this?
Yeah.
People want to read that because I think it's hilarious, and it shows the job, and it shows the humanity side of it. Because, again, it wasn't like, oh, this fucking overdose. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're intubate. Hey, watch me intubate this guy on the bench.
but it's even the toe pain. Yeah, nobody wants to read about the toe pain.
Right, but you sandwich that between 2 calls.
But I think they want to read about that person's emotion.
Yeah.
That salty ass person that just walked in on a dead baby.
Yeah.
And then had to go
run something else. Any other call.
Go run a toe pain.
Go run a call. Period.
What are those emotions that go through that person's head? How do you flip that switch from that one call, from the horrid call to the benign toe pain?
Right.
And to me, what's funny to write about is those conversations that you have with your partner going to that toe pain call, or the after, or describing the nurse's look on their face when you're like, he's got toe pain.
I brought you work. I'm sorry.
I brought him a high acuity toe pain. So yeah, those things. I like writing about that shit, and I like reading about it. And then the game ball became something like bigger than I ever thought it.
Right.
I had people coming up to me, and the real joy is when somebody texts me in the middle of the night or calls me in the middle of the night and says, hey, I just ran a call with, Bob and Ted's fire department, and they were jam up.
Right.
They just did a wonderful job, man. They did this and they did that, and this whole call went because of this, or, never, or just, hey, this cop over here, what's his name, man? He's a super nice guy, man. He helped get the stretcher out.
Right.
He did, and seriously, like, you don't think getting a stretcher out or helping push a stretcher is like that big a deal, but when it's just some cop, like, hey,
not expected.
I know how to put the fucking stretcher in and out of the truck, and they're proud of that.
Right.
They're like seriously proud of the fact that they know how to do that. And somebody calls and when they tell me about somebody else, not necessarily themselves, but somebody else, and I just like hearing things, and people come up to me and go like, man, am I going to get a game ball?
Right.
Am I going to get a game ball?
It's really weird. Like, it's that typical like public safety mentality. Like, I need a reward. Can you give me? I mean, everyone always jokes like, yeah, good job on an IV stick. What do you want, a cookie?
Right.
No, but could you put my name in the game ball?
Right. Can I get a game ball?
Get a game ball real quick.
The funniest one, and I hope he listens to this. Mark Hatcher, the absolute funniest. And we ran this. It was a bad call. We thought it was a head bleed. I think it ended up being like a tumor, but presentation was like a head bleed. We were a long way from the hospital. Not a good candidate for RSI. Just the airway did not look like a good candidate for RSI, but needed to secure an airway. I mean, I had a long way to go. Needed to secure an airway. I tried a nasal tube and didn't get it. And I looked at Sergeant Hatcher and I'm like, "You're up, boss." And nothing like pressure. And man, he did it, and he got it, and he was sweating.
Right.
And I think he wasn't completely confident at the beginning that he was gonna get it. That if I missed it, and I've got some pretty decent skills with nasal airways and stuff, and he got it, and he just looked at me and was like, "I better get a damn game ball tonight." And I thought, if fucking Hatcher wants a game ball, what has this thing evolved into?
Right.
And I don't know, man. It's some days I'm kind of, it's the danger of it for me is the shit has to come almost natural, and I can't force it.
All right. My next question was, have you gotten to a point where you feel obligated?
Yeah. There's some I feel obligated to
and just to hear you say it, and what I thought, I hate it. Now I hate it. I hate because now it's an external pressure that you don't need.
Right. So and I'm really trying. I'm trying hard, and that's saying I don't want to hate it, and I'm trying not to force it. And I can tell you honestly, there is one thing and one person that Dean Douglas is the reason. He sent me a message one morning. I had not been doing the game balls. I backed off of it. I was tired of hearing people shit about it. I was tired of that running that constant fucking gauntlet of, is admin gonna fucking hammer my ass over this today? The day that they're gonna drop the hammer on me for this bullshit.
Right.
And Dean messaged me and he goes, he says, "You okay?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?" And Dean's one of my dadgum heroes. He's a guy that just got it, man.
When you say the word mentor, that name will pop. His name will pop out.
He's the guy that just got it. Yeah. He understood
people. He understood the job. He understood the balance. He understood the goals, the morale, all that.
So he's the guy, and he's like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you good?" And he's like, "I'm good." He goes,
"Yeah."
He goes, "Man," he goes, and he's like, "Man," he goes, he said, "When I'm getting ready in the mornings and stuff," he goes, "I read the game ball."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm missing it."
I suspect that's the same for a lot of people.
And I'm like, "You're missing it?"
Yeah.
I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Man, I'm missing it." He goes, "I like hearing those stories." He said, "I love hearing about these people." And he goes, he says, "Some of the people you mentioned have been students." He said, "I know them. I've watched them graduate. Some of them are old that worked with and worked under him." And he goes, I love it." He goes, "Man," he says, "I'll be sitting in the bathroom and getting ready," and he's like yelling for Dina to come and, man, check out what he wrote to this morning and all this. And I'm like, "Seriously?" He goes, "Listen," he goes, "don't stop that."
Yeah.
He goes, "Absolutely, don't stop that." He goes, he said, "You may want to go back one day and print all those out." And he said, "It would be like, he said,
coolest coffee table book ever. Right. Coolest coffee book.
He goes, "Don't stop."
Yeah.
He goes, "Just don't stop." He goes, "If you don't do it for anybody else," he goes, "do it for me."
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can you tell a guy that wears a skirt? No.
Right.
I mean, the guy pipes and he's the coolest guy in the world.
Right.
And a little side note on that, it was really sad adjuncting at the med school this year.
Yeah.
And telling the student, and I would tell every group that came through, I'm like, because I ask them, I'm like, who's your favorite? I said, who do you like and who do you don't like in this? And they're like, I get them going in there, man. I'm like,
let me tell you about.
I said, "Phil, what do you think?" "Oh, we love Phil." I was like, "Listen, nobody loves Phil like Phil loves Phil." I was like, and they laughed. They're like, "Yeah, that's him. And I said, Aaron Dix, I said, Southern Baptist preacher in a little Connecticut Jewish boy's body. I said, he's just a ball of fucking fire. And I said, he'll turn you on to this shit. I said, man, he'll get you going.
Makes it sound sexy.
They love him.
Yeah.
And they start going on. Now they talk about Anthony
and Hoxie and everybody.
And all these people. And I'm like, y'all are missing the coolest fucking guy ever. I said he could wear a kilt while riding a motorcycle and playing the bagpipes at the same time and still embrace you with a fucking hug that made you feel so good about yourself. And so anyways, so Dean, that's the reason I did it. And so I'm not trying not to force it.
Good.
Trying not to. And it has some jab at them.
But I love them. And I know a ton of people do. And I'll tell you right now that the new kids coming out absolutely look forward to it. Because it's I think it shows them that people are watching. And it's the important people. It's not the them. It's not even the middle them, the clinical field supervision, or my training officer. I think your training officer should be giving you that feedback. But again, it feels like business. But when other people recognize it, I think, that's the best thing in the world. Like I said, recently I've been asking, do you say it to people's faces? Like, are you telling them? I think a lot of that really comes from Dean, where